Blog Talk Radio.
This is Bostonred on the World on the 8th of August 2013 as we roll through this experiment in broadcasting. Nonetheless, the email service that was utilized by one Edward Snowden, he was in the Moscow airport at the time, is now closed. It was an American service. Let me get to it here. We have several that was based in Texas. Nonetheless, it was Lavabit, was owned by Lester Livingston. Said he folded the company. This is from him. Rather than becoming, in his words, complicit in crimes against the American people. Levinson did not return calls from the Associated Press. There is on his site a declaration, and we'll read it in a minute. The post did not elaborate, but Snowden's disclosures have focused attention to how the U.S. government can secretly compel companies to hand over customer information and gag them from talking about it. Lavabit's information may be of interest to investigators chasing Snowden's leaks. Public records showing that someone going by Ed Snowden registered 3 addresses with the Dallas firm over the past 4 years. Now, Snowden is a man that obviously is tech savvy, and I would question why he, Ed Snowden, would register in his own name with a service, because that in itself would be a bit strange. Obviously, looking at it here, it's Ed Snowden at Lavabit. But nonetheless, there no doubt were techies concerned. I was looking at it here, various ones, but there's a note of caution. And we'll read the message here. I have been forced to make a difficult decision. This is from the owner, to become complicit in crimes against the American people or walk away from nearly 10 years of hard work by shutting down Lavabit. After significant soul searching, I decided to suspend operations. I wish I could legally share with you the events that led to my decision. I cannot. I feel that you deserve to know what's going on. The First Amendment is supposed to guarantee me the freedom to speak out in situations like this. But unfortunately, Congress has passed a law that says otherwise. As things currently stand, I cannot share my experiences over the last 6 weeks, even though I have twice made appropriate requests. In other words, that is what some of the other tech firms have talked about. What is happening now, we've already started preparing the paperwork to continue to fight for the Constitution in the Fourth Circuit of Appeals. A favorable decision will allow me to restore Lavabit as an American company. This experience has taught me one important lesson. Without congressional action or strong judicial precedent, I would strongly recommend against anyone trusting their private data to a company with a physical presence in the U.S. Now, that's a very important warning. I just will reread it. This experience has taught me, this is Ladar Levinson talking here, one important lesson: without congressional action or strong judicial precedent, I would strongly recommend against anyone trusting their data, private data, or the privacy to a company, my word, privacy, with fiscal ties in the U.S. It was located there. He was located in Texas, and it's sincerely Dr. Levinson. He's the owner and operator of Lavabit LLC. So thus he was put out of the business, and there is a defense fund here that you can utilize, and it's at PayPal. So it's called the Lavabit Legal Defense Fund. You can, as one would say, donate there. To other news, mortars hit the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's neighborhood. It has done that before by the rebel forces. Rockets and mortars hit the Damascus neighborhood of the President Bashar al-Assad. At least two rebel brigades on Thursday claimed to have, this is from Al Jazeera, hit the president's motorcade as it was ferrying the president to morning prayers in the heavily guarded Maliki district where the president lives and works. Syrian TV linked to the regime said two mortar shells landed in Maliki, injuring two guards, but the government was adamant that the shells did not hit the president's convoy. A spokesman for the group, Lawal al-Islam, said one or two that they carried out the attack. We have monitors in the area who confirmed the attack hit some presidential guards, he said. It also hit a checkpoint, and that's about 7 in the morning. The Lawal al-Islam had no information on the Assad motorcade. The Syrian government denies this. This is the Eid al-Fitr prayer. It marks the end of Ramadan. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Eid to the 3 days of it. And there are pictures of President Assad leaving the prayer, and you will see that in our marker here also, of President Assad getting into his car and at the prayer ceremony. And we'll have a little video on that as we leave out here in our news in 10. Watching our time here, we're doing okay because of the Ed Snowden affair, but all these affairs are linked together. In Cairo, in the Egyptian capital, the wife of the deposed President Mohamed Morsi appeared at a rally. There are tens of thousands of people there. They have been doing this in Nazar City, and the military has threatened to intervene. They've also killed over 100 people there in that demonstration format. The two U.S. senators, the Senator McCain, he was a presidential candidate in the U.S. in 2008, and a senator from South Carolina, Graham, were there talking with their lackeys, the military council in General al-Susi, who is the head of that council, but at the same time, very little progress has been made. This is a political situation in Egypt, and it only can be solved by the use of what political machinery they have in Egypt. And that is no doubt where modern negotiations come in. The military council sees no way of doing that. Basically, they're under their coup d'etat regime. They will continue with that. The same with the Syrian government. The President Bashar al-Assad will be there. They no doubt tried to assassinate him today, and they claim to have monitors, but we are very dubious of these groups having monitors. What has happened there, various intelligence forces and their cohorts, including the NSA, CIA, the Mossad, etc., have agents around, and they were the ones being, as they say, what we used to call the military, the forward observers. In other words, they were pinpointing where the strike were to be, and no doubt assisted these rogue elements in firing the munitions that hit in that area, because they really don't have the capability or the training to do that. And it's a very, very dangerous situation, because they have to know that this situation now is not going to improve with them in time. So thus they're in a very difficult situation. We did a program on Bostonred last night called Backward Thinking American Foreign Policy, and this plays exactly into it, the situation in Syria and the American government's involvement in it, and also the more direct involvement in the government in Cairo because of the $1.5 million plus that they supplied to the Egyptian military. They are calling the shots there, make no doubt about that. So thus this remains a topic, but it remains, it's sort of like in the American capital, Washington, D.C., things are in a quote-unquote gridlock. In international affairs, that normally does not happen because people are moving to fix things, and events themselves fix things. So looking at the BBC, they're running the same story out of Damascus, Syria, that the denial of the attack on Bashar al-Assad's motorcade as he was going to Eid prayers this morning, earlier in the morning. So you'll hear these stories and military activities no doubt going on in the eastern part of the country, but it's very, very sporadic. These forces tend to be very dispersed at best. They're sort of a hit and miss. There are various gangs, but they're backed up by millions and billions of dollars from the Emirates and various other countries that are in this fight. So those things will continue to play out in the international sphere and also in the military sphere, more so in the military sphere. But the war in Syria has went on for 2 years, and in Egypt the Arab Spring has went on for a number of years now, about the same, and very little has been accomplished other than they deposed the president there, Mohammed Mubarak. He's in custody now, but his predecessors are basically the same. They had an election, a democratic election. Mohammed Morsi was elected president. He was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but he was overthrown by the military, and then the so-called secular forces are fighting amongst themselves there. So there's no clear path. The Egyptians make their money from tourism. There is no door open to deal with that particular issue. So in other words, you have war all over Syria. You have divide in Egypt that could go to a civil war there. So thus the foreign policy of the imperialist countries, as they used to be called, are in a shamble. So all of this plays into the Ed Snowden affair, his asylum there in the Russian Republic. President Obama is now boycotting a face-to-face with the Russian President V.I. Putin. That really doesn't make any difference. It's kind of a childish play as far as they're concerned. It will not alter their foreign policy. In the Yemenis peninsula there, 8 died, new drone strikes there. The drones have been, as they say, busy. Killed at least alleged Al-Qaeda militants. Well, they killed 8 people. There's no doubt about that. So that was where the so-called alerts came from. We're not certain as to where those alerts were, or where these people are. Very virtually impossible to denote who these people are, or even if they ever literally exist. But embassies were shuttered across, American embassies that is, across that particular region, and they remain shuttered to days. But that has been a very volatile issue from the very start. And one other item here, there's 100 Yemenis Guantanamo prison. The president would like to close it. He could close it. There are mainland American facilities, what they call maximum security facilities, that obviously could take care of these people. So this is where we leave you in our News in 10. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned for our other political production, Bostonred, and also over the weekend we have the Week That Was, and tomorrow morning, Friday, Java political program, but we do cover some international news there, and we also have a financial program called This Week in Economics by Numbers Man, our alter ego. So we have a number of programs here to cover a myriad of things. We apologize for not having sport here as we normally would have, at least some sport. Roma evidently assigned. This is in football, soccer, with Arsenal for £8 million pounds. And that's, I guess that's going to be all of our sport for today. Nonetheless, we shall return next week. Good day.